BOG meeting to order. I want to really, first of all, welcome and thank everyone for participating in this special meeting. We recognize that this is the second attempt to get everybody together this month and appreciate the flexibility as we work to go ahead and review and hopefully approve the items on the agenda today, which will lead to significant investments to tackle homelessness. With that, I would also like to, I believe my brain is worse than usual, but David, if you'd like to introduce yourself, and then we'll go through and do roll call, please, if that works.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Chang. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is David Escobar. I'm so sorry. I think I see myself twice on here. Let me just, there we go. Okay, my name is David Escobar. I am Development Specialist 3 here with the Continuum of Care. I've been with Housing Workforce Solutions for over a year, and I now have the privilege of transitioning into this new role where I'm able to help coordinate these meetings. So you've seen my face through the CoC, and you'll also be seeing it today here at the BOG. That being said, is it okay to move forward with roll call, Dr. Chang?
Yes, please, if you would. Thank you and welcome, David.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. So in accordance with Brown Act, I'm going to ask that you all please unmute and verbally confirm your attendance. And if you are here via proxy, please let me know. So I'll go down the list, and I'll go down the list a second time in case anyone jumps on. So I have William Hutchinson. Lieutenant Hutchinson, are you here?
Yeah, present, yes.
Thank you. Then I have Supervisor Spiegel. Are you here?
Present.
Thank you, Supervisor Spiegel. I have Ben. Are you present?
Present.
Thank you, Ben. Dr. Matthew Chang.
Present.
Councilmember Erin Edwards.
She's not actually able to make it. She's in City Council.
Okay. And there's no proxy?
No, we're gonna have to get one too. Can we get that from you, David?
Yeah, Michelle, can you get, I think Michelle should become the proxy, or Larissa.
Okay. Yes, I'll go ahead and send you the letter after this meeting. And I'll just need to get that letter back.
Okay.
Dr. Kendrick Davis, are you present?
Present. Good afternoon, family.
Thank you. Now moving on to the private sector, Bill Blankenship. Bill, are you present? Leticia de Lara. Dr. Charles Lee Johnson. Angela Coe.
Hi, good afternoon. Angelina Coe present.
Thank you, Angelina Coe. Sorry, I apologize.
No worries.
Linda Barak.
Linda Barak here.
Thank you. Susan Larkin. Okay. I am going to say the last name because I'm not confident in pronouncing the first name. Last name Smith.
Anise Smith, present. No worries. Hi, everybody.
Thank you, Anise. Okay. Do we have Jasmine de la Trinidad? And then Karen Roper, are you present?
I am here and excited to be here. Yay.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much. And Greg Rodriguez, are you here today?
I'm present.
Perfect. That being said, we do have a quorum. Mr. Chair, we do have a quorum, so we can go ahead and move on forward with the rest of our agenda.
Wonderful. Thank you, David. So moving on to consent items, we have two. Hopefully you had a chance to review 2.1, the minutes approval for the December 15th meeting, and then 2.2, the approval of resolution 202301 to continue teleconferencing. And with that, is there a motion to approve these two consent items?
So moved.
Second.
A motion,
David, if we could do a vote, please. Thank you.
Who made the motion? I'm sorry, I didn't catch the name.
Karen Roper.
And then who second?
Bill Blankenship.
Thank you, Bill. Oh, and Bill, you are here today. Thank you.
Yes, I am.
Okay. Okay. And then just to confirm, I'm doing this correctly. We go down the entire list one more time, correct? Yes. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Lieutenant Hutchinson.
Aye.
Supervisor Spiegel.
Yes.
Ben.
Yes.
Dr. Chang.
Yes.
And then Council Member Edwards Proxy.
Yes.
Dr. Kendrick Davis.
Yes.
Leticia Lara.
I don't think she's here, David.
No, she's not. Yeah, Dr. Charles Lee Johnson, just making sure they're not here. Okay. Angelina Ko,
Yes.
Linda Brock,
Yes.
last name Smith.
Anise, yes.
Anise, thank you. Anise, okay. And then Karen Roper had made the first motion. All right, thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you. Moving on to 3.0, public comment on any item not listed on the agenda. David, have we received any public comments by way of email?
I did not receive any public comments.
And do we have any member of the public who wants to speak on an item not listed on the agenda here today? Okay, I don't see any, my screen's a little different. I don't see any hands raised. I don't see anybody raising their hand. I think we will close that and then move on to new business. And the first one is item 4.1, or the Board of Governors teleconferencing. I'd like to turn over to Greg Rodriguez, the HWS Deputy Director. Thanks, Greg.
So, as most of you know, when we went through COVID, we had the virtual meetings, and through the Brown Act revisions, there's actually about 16 Brown Act bills that are up in consideration in the Assembly this year, or in the legislature. But what we've done in working with County Council, and I apologize for background noise, I mean the airport in Oakland, but what we've done in consultation with County Council, and then talking with Joe Coletti and other continuum of cares across the state, have determined that because the Board of Governance is technically an elected body by the continuum of care participants, they do need to meet the Brown Act requirements. So that means we do need to go back into in-person meetings with the same stipulations that we had originally about publicly posting. There are some provisions within the new regulations about an emergency situation or extenuating circumstances, but it's only allowed 2 times a year. And I don't want to get too far in the weeds in that. But suffices to say, and especially in conversations with our staff at the CoC and with Karen as the chair of the CoC, we've determined that we will be presenting some language, some charter revisions going forward that will allow the continuum of care meetings to continue on virtual. And we may even do kind of a hybrid in-person virtual, but probably go more towards a virtual approach on a monthly basis and maybe a quarterly in-person approach. But just to notify that as of the next Board of Governance meeting, because the emergency order is actually ending today, that we will have to go back into in-person meetings for the Board of Governance, but working on some language within the charter to allow the continuum of care to continue to meet virtually. The vast reason for that, as most of you know, is that when we used to meet in the Banning City Council chambers, there would be about 30, maybe 40 people. We have meetings now over 100 people, and we really want to continue the engagement and realize the time commitment that people have. And I think all of us have realized over the last 2 years, not just the challenges we face, but the engagement that has happened within the continuum of care is absolutely amazing. And that credit goes to our former chairs, Michelle and Vice Chair Tanya, and then of course Karen, and my role as the previous chair as well. So I'm happy to answer any questions. And Tanya, if you want to add anything, more than happy, or Karen as well.
Thank you, Greg. I think what I would add, first and foremost, good afternoon, everybody. It's nice to connect with you virtually. Tanya Torno with Housing and Workforce Solutions, Continuum of Care Division. I think what we wanted to add is that we very much want to look for a centralized location. Previously, before COVID, the Board of Governance used to meet, as the Continuum of Care did, in the city of Banning. I think that has been sort of identified as a central location for folks coming from the east and west and the southwest. So that is an area that we are considering, but definitely open to any feedback or recommendations that you guys have in helping us identify an area that works. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg, and thank you, Tanya. At this point, I'll open up to any comments from BOG members. Go ahead, Karen. I saw you. Go ahead.
Thank you. I just, Mr. Chair, I just really would like to compliment staff. I know that they've worked really hard to try to find the best solution. And I think that, you know, Greg and Tanya did a good job explaining that. I believe this is the sweet spot. You know, we know based on the configuration of the BOG are going to need to have those in-person meetings, but I'm so thankful that we were able to find a solution to allow remote meetings for the continuum of care, just because we hope that we can continue to broaden the ability for more people to participate. And we know that people in this space are so busy. So any opportunity that we can give to be able to allow people to harness technology to be inclusive, I think is important as the chair of the continuum of care. And so I just really want to thank staff for all of the research and hard work that they did to try to find a solution. And the other thing too is some of the other topics that we're discussing is, and I really want to give credit to Tanya, is being creative to get our continuum of care funded agencies together, where there will be more in-person opportunities to do capacity building, training, collaboration. So there's more exciting things on the horizon in terms of getting us together as a region to move forward with performance.
Thank you very much, Karen. Anyone else from the BOG have any comments? And not seeing any, I'll open up to comments from the public on this item. All right, well, oh, go ahead. Karen, Supervisor Spiegel, please.
Yes, I just want to throw this out there. And I know there's always reasons that things happen. When we go back, which is inevitable, to meeting in person, we have to be a little more conscious of having us traveling to different locations and the cancellation, because we block out more time in our day. It's easier to pop on a Zoom call that we can squeeze in. But when we're in person now, it's going to be a little more difficult. So I just hope we are a little more conscientious of everybody's schedules. That and I realize things come up and happen, but maybe more of a problem. And maybe it's just me. I don't know if anybody else has that same problem of trying to squeeze things and move things around quickly to meet those needs. So I just want to put that out there now.
So Supervisor Spiegel, I'll agree. You know, my calendar is almost as busy as yours. It's like, and I think what's good and what I'm hearing from the state is that I think we're going to get some good Brown Act legislation that's going to give us the opportunity, especially around the emergency meetings. And then Tanya and myself have also had internal conversations about scheduling emergency meetings and how we get around that, or notifying as well. So we will address that.
Thank you, Supervisor Spiegel. Karen Roper, please.
Yes, Dr. Chick, I forgot to mention something, and I hope I'm not getting too far out in front of the process, but especially trying to be sensitive to what Supervisor Spiegel had to say. I just wonder if at some point when it's appropriate, we can have the discussion. Sometimes when the special meetings have to be called, it's only because staff is trying to be responsive on really short deadlines related to funding. And so I wonder if at some point we can entertain the discussion of perhaps within some parameters, delegating some authority to staff where they could report back to the Board of Governance, but be empowered to make some quick decisions regarding funding, where maybe we wouldn't have to have some emergency special meetings. And obviously all of that can be detailed in terms of what the BOG is comfortable delegating, but I would just throw that out there so that maybe it makes it easier on the Board of Governance members, but also on staff to be responsive to federal and state deadlines that can be very daunting. They're getting, it seems like, shorter and shorter with how quickly they want counties to respond.
No, I appreciate that, Karen. I certainly understand that oftentimes our staff are tasked with something very fast and of great import that changes quickly. I think, and just for my own edification, it'll be helpful maybe to hear at a future meeting, what are those parameters currently, and then kind of gauge the appetite of the Board of Governors to potentially make some changes. So that's maybe something that we can ask folks to look at. Carol, your hand's been up for a while, please.
Yes, I was excited to hear that in the past, the meetings have been held in the Banning Chamber meeting facilities. And I wanted to let you know that Faith in Action, which does most of our work in the Banning, Beaumont and Cabazon area, would happily help facilitate any in-person meeting that you wanted to have there. And I love the fact that you recognize that it is the midway point within the county, and we would certainly like to bring more attention to this area by having a Board of Governments meeting there. Just putting my 2 cents in.
Thank you, Carol. I appreciate it. Any other comments on this item? All right, not seeing any. This is informational only. So thank you, Greg. Thank you, Tanya. Thank you, everyone who participated. Very, very helpful. Moving on to 4.2, the 2022 Emergency Solutions Grant. And I'm going to ask Tanya to speak to this one, please. Thank you. Oh, I see Supervisor Spiegel with her hand up. Yeah, go ahead, Supervisor
Before
Spiegel.
you start 4.2 and 4.3, I will have to recuse myself. Conflict of interest. So I'm going to turn my screen, be out of here for those 2 items.
Thank you, Supervisor. And I have to recuse myself from 4.3, but I will hang on for 4.2 and then also go off. So thank you, Supervisor. And go ahead, Greg.
Do we still have a quorum for both of these items, David, if they recuse?
Good question.
Let me confirm.
We do. I think we do, but
1.
And Lisa, I know Lisa Sanchez from County Council is wrong, but
yeah.
correct me if I'm wrong. As long as we have the quorum, as long as they have, I think as long as any conflicted board members recuse themselves from voting, they still, okay. Just making sure.
Okay, great. Thank you. Supervisor Spiegel, your hand's still up from last, I think it's just up from last time. Lisa Sanchez, please.
Thank you, Chair. I would also recommend if you are anyone recusing themselves from item 4.3 to also be recused from item 4.2 because it's related funding.
Sounds good. In that case, with your acceptance, I'll turn this over to Greg to run these 2 items, if that's okay. Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. All right, so 4.2, just as Dr. Chang said, I will turn this over to Tanya for description.
Thank you. Good afternoon once again. This item is to review our 2022 Emergency Solutions Grant Award. Every year, the Continuum of Care receives roughly about $300,000 in ESG funding, which can be used to support 4 different activities. If you go to the next slide, we break out the different types of activities that can be supported under this program, and that includes street outreach, rapid rehousing, emergency shelter, and homelessness prevention. We previously brought the specific allocation for this program to the board, to each of you in August of last year. At that time, we were in the process of submitting our application, and we had allocated the total funding available to 2 activities, street outreach and rapid rehousing. David, are you able to advance to the next slide? Perfect. So if you look at the table, you'll see that last year when we met again in August, we agreed 182,000 would go towards street outreach and 121,000 would go towards rapid rehousing. There is a restriction from the state, or a requirement, I should say, that Continuums of Care allocate 40% of their total award towards rapid rehousing, which is essentially rental assistance activities to get people that are on the streets into a private rental unit, and the funding can be used to pay for security deposit, first month's rent, and ongoing rental assistance for a 12-month period. So the 121 that we had set aside at that time was that full 40% that the state required. At this time, we are recommending that the board consider repurposing the entire $300,000 to rapid rehousing. And the reason for that is we've been very fortunate to have received an allocation through the IHP and Molina HIP program. We spoke about that during the last board meeting and the last Continuum of Care meeting. But essentially, there's about $7 million in those state HIP dollars. And I apologize that our screen keeps bouncing back and forth. Essentially, there's about $7.1 million of those HIP funds that are going to support street outreach activities. So in an effort to align and coordinate the funding so that we're not duplicating services and we're prioritizing investments in housing, we wanted to recommend that we reprogram this full amount to support rapid rehousing activities. David, if you can advance to the next slide. We wanted also to be able to provide you with a breakdown of the street outreach teams that are covered under the HIP investments. So you'll see that we were very intentional about making sure that we had teams in every single supervisorial district. These are teams that include some county teams like behavioral health, but also nonprofit providers that are in each of those districts, know the areas, were previously funded under the ESG coronavirus round funding that we received, and we'll continue to operate in that way through the next 12 months. So we're very fortunate that we have that investment in street outreach, and those teams' activities will continue so that when calls come to our Home Connect hotline, teams can be contacted and asked to engage clients who are requesting assistance, in addition to actively driving around each of those supervisorial districts and engaging with people on the spot who are in crisis. So again, this slide was really more just to show that we have coverage, and we have coverage in each district. And David, if we go back to the previous slide, this reflects our recommended motion to reprogram the full amount of ESG funding to support rental assistance activities. And with that, I'll go ahead and take a break here and see if anybody has any questions.
So any questions for Tanya? A couple seconds for hands that I'm not seeing. So I would entertain a motion for staff recommendation for the allocation. Anyone?
Lieutenant, I'll motion for the reallocation of the funding.
Linda Barack, second.
Thanks, Hutch. Is there a second?
Linda Barack, second.
Thank you, Linda. Any further discussion? Yeah, I got you, Linda. Any further discussion? Not seeing any hands. David will go ahead and take a roll call vote.
Thank you. So with Supervisor Spiegel out, just wanting to confirm this would be abstain?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Ben Hauregi.
Yes.
Dr. Chang is also going to abstain. Councilmember Edwards.
David, I think I think until we get the proxy letter,
Got it.
We'll go ahead and.
Okay. Dr. Kendrick Davis.
Yes.
Bill Blankenship.
Yes.
Angelina Coe.
Yes.
And then we had a second from Linda Brock. Anise.
Yes.
And Karen Roper.
I think she had to step away.
Her vote's in the chat.
Okay.
Casey, I said yes.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you. Okay. And the motion passes.
Great. Thank you, David. All right, so moving on to item 4.3 is the rapid rehousing funding recommendations. And Tanya, it's a little bit of background, please.
Thank you. So this is another exciting time. We released a request for proposals, which was really sort of I'll say a mega application or RFP that included a combination of different funding sources that are administered by the CoC, which included HAP allocations in addition to cash, as well as ESG. And the funding, it can be used to pay for rental assistance in the way that I described it earlier. It can be used to pay for security deposits, first month's rent, landlord incentives, to, basically pay a larger deposit or a fee to a landlord who may be renting to one of our participants for the first time, in addition to ongoing rental subsidies for up to 24 months. And so if we jump over to the next slide, and then I'll bring you back to what our funding recommendations are. We opened applications in December, so right before Christmas, and then provided an extension through February 2nd after the homeless point in time count to allow agencies to submit their proposals for the funding. We received a total of 12 applications totaling $5.8 million. And of the funding we had available, which is 1.5 million. What, David, if you go back to the previous slide that shows the different programs that are being recommended for funding, what we wanted to note here is that we put together these funding recommendations using the basically appropriating dollars to each supervisoral district using proportions or percentage of the unsheltered count. So to give an example, District 1 has 30% of the unsheltered population. And so we used, of the available funding, $1.5 million, 30% of that amount was used to basically serve residents that are in that district. And we did that as part of our response to make sure that funds are appropriated in an equitable way, so the funds are going where the need is the greatest. And then secondly, we made sure that each district was accounted for, each district received an allocation. And the third methodology used was to make sure that at least 441,000, which is 10% as required with the HAP appropriations, was used to support youth tailored or youth specific responses. So of the 12 agencies that submitted proposals, we are recommending 10 to be funded in the way that is described on the screen. Our plan is to make sure that these projects are connected, market their programs within the continuum of care. Our thoughts were to, have them join a meeting at the continuum of care or the next meeting at the continuum of care to talk about their programs. So everyone is aware how to refer clients in and what those services will entail. And in addition to that, I think what we really wanted to emphasize is that when we meet in person, I know the board has been asking for a breakdown of all the different projects that we fund. And David, I think if you advance like 2 slides ahead, I just wanted to leave you with a high-level overview, knowing that, again, next time we meet, we'll give you something a little bit more specific of the CoC and county investments made in each district. So you'll see that, as I mentioned, District 1 has 30% of the unsheltered count, and this is using the new redistricting maps that are available, and is receiving 22.7% of all the funding managed by our continuum of care, as well as any county homeless assistance dollars that are managed by our department. And you can see the breakouts for the other districts. And so I think it's really important, especially during the next time that we meet, that we really continue to speak to how we fund investments in an equitable way. But also during that meeting, you'll get a fuller breakout of how much of those investments are going towards housing versus emergency shelter, street outreach, and other supportive services that are needed to help someone resolve homelessness. But all together, these investments total $36.8 million. And again, some of it is CoC funded appropriations, and some of it are county appropriations that we leverage and bring together to support our response. And with that, I'll take you back to our first slide that shows the 10 projects that are being recommended for funding, and I'm available to answer any questions that you have. And I know some, if not all of the agencies are here and ready to talk about their programs if needed.
Thank you, Tanya. And I'd just like to point out on the district allocation, I think it's important to note that you see the sizable amounts on District 1 and District. In mind that District was one of the largest shelters in the county, and District 4 has 2 of the largest shelters. So when you talk about infrastructure and financing, that's the system that we've set up. That does not mean that we are not working in District 2, 3, and 5. We increase the investments in those districts. I want to make that perfectly clear. And again, to Tanya's point, is looking at the equitability aspect, but more importantly, that we're targeting where the highest point in time counts are as well on that. So with that, Tanya, there was a question, and I believe it's yes, from Hutch. Sorry, William Hutchinson, but I can call him Hutch because he knows me, about the funding for parking in RV locations. And I believe rapid rehousing will cover those costs, correct?
Correct. And well, let me specify. So rapid rehousing dollars can be used to pay for space costs, fees that individuals who have mobile homes usually have. I think the key is that the unit or the structures need to be connected to the ground. And so I think sometimes that's where the difference between an RV and like a mobile home that is, on a fixed sort of foundation will pass housing quality standards versus an RV, may not. So what we've been creative, I know some teams have worked with families who are living in RVs to build out sort of foundation. So it's attached to a fixed site. So there's ways to sort of get innovative and work around that. But I did see that Roshana Walker, our project manager for HAP, did make a comment and said that she would get confirmation specific to RVs. So we'll double check on that.
So and if that is the case, then, and Roshana, you and I can talk offline about this, if we need to do some policy changes or legislative changes around that to make that happen. In the meantime, I think we can look at preventative measures like rental assistance, whatever that would qualify for those type of measures. But I think especially to the point, especially, it's not just the desert, it's even parts of Western Riverside County too. This could be an option because we are seeing more and more individuals in RVs type situation that we could get housed. So other questions? I see Christopher Beck.
Yes, hi. I just wanted to make sure, clarify, in terms of just looking at examples on the youth set aside, take Walden Family Services, for example, that amount there, is it the case that this amount and these services will only be provided to districts 2 and 5 from Walden? That's how that is broken down.
That is correct. And I think it's great that you're asking that question because I think I should have clarified that as we were breaking out these projects. I think one thing that has become sort of clear to us, specifically when it comes to youth services, is that right, it can be hard for persons who are in crisis to sort of navigate like the different programs that they need to access to resolve their homelessness. And so our youth action board and our homeless coordinator have provided feedback to us that sort of having like a centralized model and sort of having designated agencies that make it very clear who they need to call when they're in crisis is a evidence-based practice. And so specifically for the youth, we're very intentional about, okay, how do we break these up so behavioral health is very clear to everybody in that district. They're going to serve all the youth in crisis there, Walden districts 2 and 5, and equitable solutions 3 and 4.
That's great. Thank you.
Other questions or comments? If not, I would entertain a motion for staff recommendation for the rapid rehousing allocations.
This is Angelina Co. I make a motion.
Thanks, Angelina. Is there a second?
Second, Lieutenant Hutchinson.
Thank you, Hutch. Any further discussion? If not, we will go to a vote. David.
All right, thank you. Ben Hauregi,
Yes.
and that, oops, sorry, and then I have Dr. Chang as an abstain as well. Dr. Kendrick Davis,
Yes.
Bill Blankenship.
Yes.
I had a first motion from Angelina Co. Linda Brock,
Yes.
Anise,
Yes.
and is Karen Roper still on the line? No. Okay. Okay. With that being said, I'll turn it back to you, Greg.
Thank you, David. The motion passes, and I move into 4.4. I'll turn it over back to Dr. Sheng. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. I just want to thank you for doing all this awesomeness from the airport, I think. So that's
my pleasure.
Multitasking on top of multitasking. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
So item 4.4, reprogramming of HHAP 3 CoC allocation, 10% set aside on street outreach to operating subsidies. I'd like to hand it over to Tanya for a report on this item, please.
Thank you, Dr. Chang. This one is a bit simpler, so try to go through it as fast as I can. Under the HHAP program, which is the state's Homeless Housing Assistance Program, we talked about how the state designates 10% of the funding to be set aside to support youth responses. And that's good. We like that set aside. It very much aligns with Riverside County's Homeless Action Plan, which each of you worked with us to develop. And if we advance to the next slide, we'll provide you with a quick preview of how some of the funding has been appropriated. If you look at the first two buckets or boxes, you'll see that they're equally split. They equal $420,000 and $720 and equally split. 50% is going to support street outreach, and the other 50% the board had earmarked to support operating subsidies towards emergency shelter and navigation centers. We very much wanted to have you consider in item 4.2 when we talked about the investment via HHIP. That's the state's investment that Greg spoke about at the last Board of Governance meeting. And as I referenced earlier, there's about $7 million that is being set aside to support street outreach activities. And so we're excited about that. We weren't anticipating those dollars. And, we talked about earlier how that investment is going to allow us to continue having dedicated street outreach teams, which include Operation Safe House and support tailored services to youth across each supervisorial district. And so for that reason, we want to make sure that as we plan for this new investment of funding that we didn't for initially, that we consider reprogramming the $210,000 that was set aside under HHAP for street outreach towards operating subsidies. So that would mean that the full amount could be invested to support an emergency shelter operation. And I think most emergency shelter operators, if they're here, would tell you that there is there are a lot of restrictions in like federal and state dollars that don't normally allow us to support emergency shelters. So one of the reasons we like the state's HHAP program is that it has allowed us to do just that. There's been major investments to support a lot of our local shelters like Path of Life, Coachella Valley Rescue Mission, Valley Restart, and others. So the recommendation is that we reprogram the street outreach allocation towards the operating subsidies to support emergency shelter operations is the first. And then the second request is to appropriate the full $420,000 towards Operation Safe House's Mainstay program. Operation Mainstay's program is the only emergency shelter program in our entire county that supports transitional age youth. It supports basically 4 beds. And while 4 beds may not seem like a lot, I can tell you that on an annual basis, they're serving about 50 transitional age youth. And a lot of their referrals come through children's services, public safety, our Home Connect hotline. So anytime anybody, a youth who is experiencing homelessness calls the hotline to request services, they are all being referred to Operation Safe House's Mainstay program. Operation Safe House notified us a few weeks ago that they would need to discontinue the program if they're not able to obtain this award. And I think it's important for us to also note that we checked with our county purchasing guidelines and learned that there is an exemption for emergency shelters to competitively bid for funding. And this is just part of, waivers that are set in place for emergency responses. So our policies within the county allow for you, the board, to approve a direct allocation to the program. From our perspective, this is the right thing to do. When we've previously submitted or requested proposals from other youth emergency shelters, normally Operation Safe House is the only program that applies for this type of funding, and to our knowledge is the only one that currently has a facility or the infrastructure to continue such a program. And I think lastly, what I will say is that although youth can be served through our regular emergency shelters, those of us that have worked with this population know that youth benefit greatly from having specialized and tailored services where they can be around other youth and staff who are trained in this area and can connect with them and follow their case closely to see them from, street into shelter and then permanent housing. So I know there's two motions here. I know we have them on screen. I think before anything, I'll just pause there and see if anybody has any questions regarding the reprogramming or the request to fund the Operation Safe House Mainstay program.
Thank you, Tanya. And I don't see anyone's hands up. Okay, well, going once, going twice. Oh, Lieutenant Administration, please, yeah.
Sorry, just for clarification, and I don't know if it matters for the document. I see that Safe House is a Main Street program. Is it Main Street or Mainstay?
You know what? I've always known it as Mainstay, but I know we have Julie Hale here. Julie, maybe you can just confirm because I could see see myself making that quick error. Thank you, Julie, for joining us.
Just to clarify, Main Street Transitional Living Program is one of our programs that serves older homeless youth ages 18 through 21. And that's an 18-month program that's located over on Main Street, obviously. Within that program, we took 4 beds and converted those to emergency shelter. And those 4 beds are what we refer to as Mainstay. Mainstay is a 24-hour emergency shelter piece where youth can come and stay up to 30 days. And while they're there, we offer them, everything that they're offered through our transitional living program, such as case management and life skills and assistance to get documentation and all the other things they need. And one of the things that I just kind of wanted to point out, while Tanya pretty much gave glowing reviews, and thank you, Tanya, within those statistics of those youth we've served, we've got over a 90% success rate of moving those youth into other programs and housing. So these youth are not going back out on the street. The Mainstay, we funnel them into Main Street program, our Harrison House Transitional Living program, or other programs that are out in the county. So we're trying to leave no youth untouched. And one thing that's unique or nice about our program is that they can stay there 24 hours a day. We don't ask them to leave during the day and check out and come back. It's almost kind of like a you know, a big, huge hug that they get, and then they get put into somebody else's program. So we're out there making a difference.
Thanks for the clarification. Appreciate that.
Sure.
Okay, well, thank you for the question and thank you for the clarification. That was very helpful. Any other comments or questions? And not seeing any, is there a motion to approve the recommended, requested recommendation?
Motion to approve Kendrick Davis.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. May I get a second?
I'll second. Lieutenant Hutchinson.
Great, thank you. And then David, if you could do a roll call first, please.
Yes, please. I have a second from Lieutenant Hutchinson. Supervisor Spiegel.
Oh, yes.
Ben Hauregi.
Yes.
Dr. Chang.
Yes.
And then I have a motion from Dr. Kendrick Davis. Bill Blankenship.
Yes.
Angelina Ko.
Yes.
Linda Barak.
Yes.
Anise.
Yes.
And Karen Roper. Okay.
She had to leave, David.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, that being said, I have that the motion passes.
All right. Thank you, David. Moving on to announcements. Anyone on the BOG with any announcements? Quiet group today. Anyone in the public with any announcements? Michelle Davis, please.
I just want to announce HUD has released our entitlement grant allocations. So the city of Riverside, we're anticipated to receive $255,400 ESG funding. So that will help a lot of our shelter and outreach services from the city. Our Hopewell Housing Opportunity for Persons with AIDS, we oversee that program for, we allocate the funds to San Bernardino as well as Riverside County. We're anticipating 4.5 million. We did see a $499,000 increase in that grant as well. So looking forward to those resources coming online.
Thank you, Michelle. Appreciate that. I apologize in advance. Ayako Tsumi.
Yes, hello. Ayako Tsumi here with Mary Erickson Community Housing and representing the Inland SoCal Housing Collective. Tanya Torno knows this and Juan Garcia and a few others, but the Inland SoCal Housing Collective is a network of organizations, government, private, nonprofit, CoC providers, any organization that wants to build more affordable housing in the IE. We are having our second speed networking event this Thursday, March 2nd. So this Thursday, March 2nd from 2:30 to 4:30 p.m. in downtown Riverside. And so far we have 77 individuals representing about 40 organizations coming. Oh, there you go. Thank you. And we hope that any organization that wants to network with other affordable housing developers, more jurisdiction cities, more CoC service providers, funders, any organization interested in the continuum of building more affordable housing, we do invite you to attend. And thank you for posting that. I'll also put the link for registration in the chat. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, Tanya, please.
Thank you. I wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to recognize one of our staff members who has been with the county for 11 and a half years. Melanie Wilson has been critical in supporting our continuum of care. Many of you know her because she previously supported us in the role that Josh and David currently do in helping us administer our continuum of care and board of governance meetings. And then about a year ago promoted into a project management role where now she gets to work with agencies and help them launch their programs and evaluate their performance and outcomes. Melanie is going to be leaving Riverside County and moving out of state to join her daughter and her grandchildren. So I think we have about 3 weeks before she exits our team. And I just saw she popped on. So really just wanted to use this meeting to recognize Melanie for all of her contributions and helping us address homelessness. Melanie, we are going to very much miss you, and we wish you the very, very best. I know that you're looking at jumping onto some agencies there who do similar work to what we do. So we will miss you, Melanie. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya. And Melanie, would you like to say a few words, or?
I don't know. Tanya has me all teared up right now.
Oh,
I'm going to miss working with everyone so much. I have really enjoyed what we do. I've been very passionate about helping our families and individuals here in the county with their struggles and helping work with the agencies to make that happen. I've enjoyed meeting so many of you in person during PIT or site visits, and I'm truly going to miss working with all of you. Keep up the good fight. And I hope to join that fight in the state of Missouri. So.
all right. Well, thank you, Melanie, and thank you for everything done. And you know, we're gonna miss you and certainly appreciate it. So, and thank you, Tanya, for bringing that up here. Anyone else with any announcements? I'm not seeing anything. Maybe we'll move on to 6.0 just for a call for agenda items for next meeting. If folks have any agenda items that they'd like to hear about for the next scheduled meeting. Everything's going perfect. We don't need to hear about anything. That's all I'm taking from this. Okay, well, I believe, Tanya, if folks think of things after the meeting, they can email the team and we can work to put it on the agenda, if that's correct. Okay, so please, if you have any thoughts of what you'd like to hear about, please email the folks and we'll work on that. Our next meeting is next regular scheduled meeting will be held on April 20th from 9 to 11 a.m. Anything else for the good of the group?
I'll just share, I'll be in touch with you guys as soon as we identify a location for that meeting. And I'll work closely with Greg, as he mentioned, to make sure that one, we definitely want to give you enough notice. And two, I want to make sure that we follow up on Supervisor Spiegel's previous request to use that time. And I think it'll be easier to do that in person to review all of the projects that are funded through the continuum of care. So we'll prepare a full report of those, break them out so we can see how those funding distributions are being appropriated by activity. So thank you again for joining us for today, and it'll be a really good to get the agencies a list of how their projects were funded so we can begin to implement those programs and services. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Tanya, and thank you, everybody. And everyone take care, and we'll see you all later. Thank you.
Thank you.